I don't know what the average is for Americans who have witnessed a school shooting, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the statistical anomaly who has witnessed two in my lifetime. The first school shooting I witnessed was on May 20th, 1999 at Heritage High School in Conyers, Georgia. I was in 8th grade on my way to Edwards Middle School. Usually a school bus stopped at the high school first and then dropped off the middle school students. As my bus pulled into the bus loop, shots began to ring out outside. Instinctively, I pulled my younger siblings to the floor of the bus because we had no idea where the bullets were coming from. After everything settled, 6 students were wounded by a student armed with a .22 caliber rifle and a revolver. This happened exactly 1 month following the tragic Columbine shootings. Fast forward to May 7, 2004. I'm a graduating senior at Randallstown High School in Baltimore, Maryland. I was leaving a charity basketball game that was designed to fundraise money for graduating seniors to be able to go to college, and it was hosted by local politicians. It was a normal, sunny, warm afternoon. We had no idea what was about to happen. Around 4 p.m., an altercation breaks out, and one of the individuals snuck off to get a gun from the car. He then shoots into a crowd of unarmed and unsuspecting men, women, and children. And yes, the gun was illegally owned. I, along with the rest of the crowd, began to flee. In the midst of the chaos, a young lady was being trampled in my path of escape. I turned around to drag her to safety. In the course of doing so, I was shot in the back of my neck. I then turned in the fight-or-flight response with my adrenaline pumping. I turned to run with her in my arms. I then felt another bullet hit me in my left shoulder. I fell to the ground. My body started to feel differently. I remember trying to get up to run, but my body was not responding as it usually does. I then realized being on the ground was the safest place to be because shots were still being fired. A few more shots rang out, and then I hear cars screeching away. As I lay on my back looking at the clear blue sky, I could hear crying, I could hear yelling, I could hear screaming, but I couldn't move to go help. I soon saw my basketball coach, the school secretary, and my older cousin Jimmy Well, who had just arrived to pick me up, standing over top of me looking with frightful looks in their eyes. I would soon be medevaced to the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center in downtown Baltimore, where they were feverishly. A week stretched by before I was able to regain consciousness enough to learn that 3 of my classmates, my quarterback, my point guard, and a young freshman, had also been shot. I had been the most seriously injured, and in that same conversation, I learned the extent of my injuries, that the bullet that hit my left shoulder traveled through my body, hit my spine, and collapsed in my right lung. My chances of walking again were slim to zero, and I was now paralyzed from the stomach down. That alone would have been a tough pill for anyone to swallow, but for me, a 3-sport athlete with lifelong dreams of following his father's footsteps to play professional football, it was devastating. Senseless violence like school shootings have changed my life forever. At just 17 years old, I had to pick the pieces of my life up while confined to a wheelchair. I had no example of what life looked like following trauma. I didn't know anyone that was wheelchair bound. I didn't know anyone who survived being shot. I didn't have any positive example of life after trauma, so I had to create that on my own with no roadmap. I've spent the last 18 years of my life picking my life back up. Even now, I'm still dealing with the impact of my injuries. In 2 ways, I'm a person that lives with a disability, and as a black man from Baltimore City who's a survivor of gun violence, both of which come with their own shared stereotypes. For the last 18 years, I've been constantly asked questions about why I'm wheelchair bound. And even after I give a well-rehearsed line such as, I was an innocent victim of a shooting at my high school while saving a fellow classmate that resulted in my paralysis, I am still questioned and victim blamed as if I had to be doing something illegal for this type of incident to happen to such a quote-unquote good young man. I believe it's very unfair that I have to go through that line of question. I'm always asked, were you at the wrong place at the wrong time? Were you hanging with the wrong crowd? People's biases of a young black man being shot set in regardless of what I say. I'm gainfully employed working for the Department of Defense. I've been able to learn how to relive life. I've learned how to drive. I've been able to purchase a home and modify both my car and my house to fit my physical needs. I'm still surviving my injury till this day. The physical bullet wounds and the surgery scars have healed, yes, but the mental trauma, emotional trauma, and healing work is perpetual and never ending. Every time there's a school shooting or an extremely triggering effect that I have to work diligently to overcome through counseling and advocacy efforts such as this. Now I advocate for those who have lost their lives and those whose voices who've been stripped away from senseless acts of gun violence. Now is the time to push for gun safety laws in order to protect the public. Sir Isaac Newton's first law of motion, which paraphrased a bit, says, an object at rest stays at rest until acted upon by another force. In short, this means guns do not have minds of their own. As a problem solver, I consistently ask myself, how do we keep guns out of the hands of those who seek harm? How do we keep guns out of the hands of those who are dangerous? How do so many illegal guns end up in the streets of Baltimore if no gun manufacturers are in Maryland anymore? These are constant questions that linger in my mind every time an act of gun violence has occurred. As a gun violence survivor, I'm also a licensed gun registered. I know there are many responsible gun owners who are trained not to draw their weapons unless a life is in danger. I believe in extensive background checks and psych evaluations for anyone who wishes to possess a gun, whether for defense of person or property. However, I am not in favor of taking guns away from responsible citizens, but because of my life experiences, I'm a strong advocate for gun safety and gun training. In closing, I would like to thank my Lord and Savior for not only carrying me through those experiences, but giving me the tenacity to do my part, despite my injuries, to make sure that no one else shares these experiences. I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart are acceptable in His sight. I would like to thank anyone who thought it necessary to include me and my story in this effort, and I hope that we can bring forth change and have gun safety laws approved. Thank you.